I'm Marsha Fox, your Polk County property appraiser. I'm going to try to walk you through a little presentation that we put together in understanding your TRIM. TRIM stands for Truth in Millage. So let's go through each portion of this. The top portion of your TRIM notice is, of course, going to be your taxing authority mailing address, the owner's mailing address, notification that this is a TRIM notice, it's not a bill, so don't start writing your checks yet, the tax district that you lie in, the property description, and location of your property. This screen shows the TRIM notice portion of it, which has all the taxing authorities. Column 1, last year's taxable values and rates. Column 2, taxable values and exemptions. Column 3, this year's adjusted tax rate based on last year's budget. Column 4, this year's tax rate and taxes if proposed budgets are changed. Well, we're going to take each piece of this and go through it. As you can see, the municipality part is blank. All the columns are the same as the one that we previously reviewed. So now let's go forward and look at each one of these. Column 1 is last year's final property tax values and the tax rates. And as you can see from the monitor, the authorities are on the left-hand side. You have your taxable value for each of those authorities. You have the exemption value. You have the tax rate and the total taxes based on last year. And the differences in these values are the exempt values because the additional $25,000 for homestead that was implemented is exempt from the school board. Column 2 is this year's taxable values and exemptions that the property appraiser's office has applied to your property. As you can see there, again, the different levels of values for the different entities because the school board is exempted from the additional $25,000 homestead. Column 3 is this year's adjusted tax rate based on last year's budget. We refer this often as the rollback rate. It's what your tax rate and taxes could be this year if each taxing authority does not adopt a budget less than last year. Now, because of the loss in values due to our declining market, taxing authorities could use the rollback rate, which is a higher rate, in order to produce the same amount of budget dollars that they had last year. This would represent that they've made no changes in their budget. Column 4 is the adjusted tax rate and taxes if the proposed budget changes are adopted. On this column, column 4, which is very important to you, is where all of your taxing authorities, the proposed millage rates that are in place right now that are to be levied. So you need to pay close attention. And at the public hearings, I want to make note here, we'll talk about the public hearings in a minute, but I want you to know that the proposed is not final until they vote on it at that public hearing. And they can always lower the millage rate, but they can never increase that rate once you've been trimmed. Now, this slide just simply shows the difference between columns 3 and 4. Your rollback rate, your proposed rate. And you can see the increased higher rate in the rollback column versus the rate that has been tentatively adopted in this particular slide. The next portion is the property appraiser's value information, which basically just simply shows last year's values versus this year. For market value, assessed value for school millage, and assessed value for non-school millages. And on this particular portion of the TRIM, all those values are pretty much the same because it's the taxable value after exemptions that shows the value that you're actually being taxed on. The next notice is the public hearing dates. You can see that the authorities which levy taxes against your property are required to hold public hearings in order to adopt their budgets and their tax rates. Public hearings are for your benefit, to understand the budget and to voice your opinions and to ask questions. The TRIM notice assessment reductions and exemptions portion, this is just a snapshot of that area and we're going to go into it a little more detail. But what I do want to talk about on this is on the lower part of this area is where we provide you with all the phone numbers for our offices to call us if you have any questions. It also gives you valuable information that if you decide after talking with the property appraiser's office first and we can't come to a conclusion about the assessment on your property, then the Value Adjustment Board you need to file a petition with them, and the deadline for that would be 25 days after the mailing, so September the 13th at 5 p.m. And all the information is provided on our website and the clerk's website about the Value Adjustment Board. So now let's go through each one of these pieces. The first piece we're going to look at is the homestead exemptions and the senior exemptions. And as you can see here, those are listed, and it tells you in the column in the middle what taxes are applied to each of those, and if you have those exemptions, how much value is applied to that in the column to the right. The next portion is the disability, veterans, widows, widowers, and any other exemptions. Same here. All of these are applied against all taxes, and the value is listed in that column. Now this is a $500 value, not a $500 tax dollar exemption. And the last portion of the assessment reductions and exemption is the Save Our Homes portion, which goes against all taxes, the limitations on the non-homesteaded properties, and the agricultural and conservation lands. The non-ad valorem assessments, let's talk about those for a few minutes. Those would be the county fire, solid waste, garbage pickup and disposal, street lighting. If you're in an area that has a community development district and you have fees that you pay there, they're all going to be in this portion. You have the authority in column 1, you have the purpose of that assessment, the phone number, and the total revenue dollars anticipated to collect. Column 3 shows the units, what you're based on, or whether it's by the structure type and square footage, as some of our commercial buildings are, the rate per that unit or that type, and then in column 5, the total non-ad valorem fees that are due. Here again is another portion of the non-ad valorem public hearings, the same as the other. It gives the authority, the phone number to call, and their date and time of when they will have their hearings. On the Polk County Property Appraiser's website, which is www.polkpa.org, we are going to have trim information available this year where you can actually view your trim and print a trim. When you go to the home page on the Property Appraiser's website as shown on the monitor, you would click on your property search button, and once you do the property search button, you can key in your parcel ID number or your street address or by name, however it's easiest for you to find your property. And then when you enter that, then it pops up with the selection of your parcel. You click on that, and then on the lower portion of the monitor you'll see it gets finally into your actual property. And we've created a new trim notice button. You can see there where you could click on that, and once you do that, then it uploads your trim notice. You can view it online, and you can even print that. Our phone numbers in Bartow, Lakeland, and Winter Haven, the office's address and phone numbers are listed on your monitor. They also are printed on the trim, so please call us. And I want to thank you, and I hope this has been helpful.